Hello everyone and welcome to the first in a series of PD videos related to education in high school mathematics, sponsored by the Learning Network. My name is Terry Kaminsky and I'm going to be giving you a short talk about using exam blueprints and using them to help you administer retests or redos in your classroom. So the first thing that we can do when we design an exam, and it's probably a great thing to do, is to take the outcomes in your program of studies and list all the possible outcomes that you want to address in your unit exam. The related questions at that point will be blank, and once you've listed the outcomes you want to address in the exam, you go ahead and you create an exam. Once you've created the exam, what you need to do is you need to go back and you need to list which questions on your exam pertain to each of the outcomes, and that's what I've done here. A couple of reasons for that. Number one, make sure you have addressed all those outcomes you said you wanted to have on the exam. Second of all, helps you see how many questions are in each of the different outcomes. And some of the outcomes are more important than others, so hopefully you have more questions in those areas. And then you can adjust your exam. If you think it's too many questions in one area, not enough questions in another area, you can revise your exam before you administer it to your students. Now, this particular blueprint, what we use it for then is once we grade our exams, we hand it back to our students. And in the My Score column, we have the students go through and we have them look through their exam and actually look at, for example, in this first outcome, look at questions 7 and 8 and write down what did they score out of, in this case, maybe there's 4 marks assigned to those questions. Maybe they got 2 out of 4. Then they do the next outcome, the third outcome, the fourth outcome. What it helps the students see is what outcomes do they understand and what outcomes did they achieve fairly well at on the exam, which ones were they having trouble with. Then what we get the students to do is in the redo column, we get the students to put a check or an X mark or a yes or a no related to the outcomes they want to reassess on. So when we administer a reassessment on the students, they do not rewrite the whole entire exam. What they actually do is they only write questions related to the outcomes that they wish to reassess on. So they may choose to redo outcome number 2 and outcome number 3 and maybe outcome number 7. So in this particular case, the student is going to reassess on questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 17, and 18. So at this point, what we then have the students do is in this column listed qualifying questions, they have to go back to their textbook, their workbook, whatever resource you're using. They actually have to do some work to help understand better the material in this particular outcome. And they need to show us this work. They need to have done it correctly, and they need to have shown all their work, everything like that. This is what we call their qualifying to redo. If they don't put in some time and effort and energy to try and learn this material better, why would we let them reassess? They'll either do worse or no better at all. So they have to put in some time. You can decide when they need to do this. They could do this in class time. You could assign this that they have to do this on their own time at home. They might come in at lunch or after school and get help with some of this material so that you can make sure that they understand this material before they're going to do their reassessment. Now, a couple of things about the reassessment. In our particular situation, we only let our students reassess once. And what we do is when we hand back the exam and we hand back this form and the kids fill it out with their scores and with the outcomes they wish to reassess in, we take a photocopy of every single one of these. So we give the original back to the student. That way they know how they performed in every outcome on the test and they know which outcomes they're going to reassess on and what their qualifying questions are. The other reason is we have a copy of this then, so if a parent ever wants to see this, you can haul it out and say, yeah, your son or daughter understands outcome 1 and outcome 4, but they're really struggling with 2, 3, and 7 here. The other thing we do when we hand this back is we set the date of the reassessment. We say the date is going to be maybe a week from now. We give the kids some time to work on this. The reassessment can be done in a couple of different ways. You can do it at lunch or after school. What we choose to do in our classrooms is after the lesson has been delivered, and normally students would be working on an assignment at that point, we have the students that are choosing to reassess to work on that reassessment in class time. Yes, that means they have more homework that day, but that's a way of getting reassessments done during class time. Does every student reassess? No. The choice is up to the student. We have some students that do really well on their unit exam, so they choose not to reassess on anything. But the choice is up to the student. We have some kids who aren't doing so hot that choose not to reassess, and we address that with the student. We talk to them about it, and if they still choose not to reassess after 1 or 2 or 3 units, then maybe we're going to make a phone call home to mom or dad and have a little chat with them as well. When we create the reassessment exam, some of these questions on the original exam were multiple choice and numerical response. Every question on the reassessment is a written question. They have to show us all their work. So it's a little bit more difficult that way. We basically create a second version of the exam where the question numbers match up from the first exam to the second exam. The questions are similar in nature, equal difficulty, etc. So if I know from the first exam that a student wants to reassess on questions 1, 2, and 3, well, that will be questions 1, 2, and 3 on the reassessment. So what I do when I create a reassessment is I create a single reassessment exam, and at the top I'll write the student's name and I'll circle the questions that they have to complete on that reassessment, and the students know that the only questions they have to do are the ones that I have circled on their paper. So once they've done the reassessment, we then grade the reassessment and we go back and we look at questions 1, 2, and 3 and we compare how did they do. Initially they may have gotten 1 out of 3 in this section, and on the reassessment they got 2 out of 3. So I'm going to write a +1 here. That means I'm going to increase their grade on the exam at this point by +1. In this case, they may have got 4 out of 7 originally on this third outcome, but maybe they only got 3 out of 7 in their reassessment. Well, this is the latest assessment. That should be what the students understand. So in this case, they go down by 1. So right now, their score has not changed at all. They went up by 1 in this outcome and down by 1 in that outcome. And we explain that to the kids, that they get whatever score they achieve in the reassessment. That is the score that they're going to get on their exam, whether they go up or they go down. There's no averaging, anything like that, because assessment says the last demonstration of the outcome should be what is recorded. Going down here, the student may have got 1 out of 5 originally on the exam, and they got 4 out of 5, so they go up by 3. So in total, I'm going to, in my mark book or on my online grading program, whatever you use, I'm going to increase this particular student's grade by 3 marks. And we keep the reassessments. We don't let the kids keep them. We keep them in a binder, so if we ever have to show parents, we have them there. The kids can look at them at any time they want. We share with them what they scored on their reassessment and where they did well and where they didn't do well, but we just keep and hold on to them. So that's a little bit about using exam blueprints and reassessments.